I stared at the elegant envelope resting on my kitchen table. My name was written in handwriting I recognized instantly. My chest tightened. Sophia walked over with 2 mugs of coffee. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I don't know yet." I turned the envelope over. She frowned. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It feels worse." "Open it." I hesitated. "I don't think I should." Sophia placed a hand on mine. "Whatever is inside, you're not facing it alone." I slowly broke the seal. A cream-colored wedding invitation slipped into my hand. My breathing stopped. Sophia quietly read the gold letters beside me. She whispered, "Chloe." I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Because I couldn't believe it. 5 years, I muttered. And she still found me. A folded note dropped onto the table. Sophia picked it up. "You read it?" "No. I think you should." I unfolded the paper. My hands trembled despite everything. The note was short. Asterisk, "I hope you'll attend my wedding. Maybe then you'll finally accept reality and see that I made the right choice by choosing someone better. It's time you let go." Asterisk. Silence filled the room. Sophia slowly looked at me. "That's cruel." I expected nothing less. She reached for my hand. "Are you okay?" I thought I was. I stared at the words again. 5 years disappeared. I was standing outside that expensive restaurant again. I was hearing Chloe's voice. "You'll never give me the life I deserve." I remembered asking, "So that's it?" She smiled. "I deserve someone successful." I asked, "Didn't we build dreams together?" She shrugged. "Dreams don't pay for luxury." I remembered watching her leave with another man. A richer man. A man driving the sports car she always admired. Back then, I believed my life had ended. Now I had Sophia. A peaceful home. A marriage built on respect. Yet one piece of paper still managed to shake me. Sophia squeezed my fingers. "Talk to me. I hate that this still hurts." "It doesn't mean you still love her." "I know. It means someone once hurt you deeply." I nodded. "I thought I'd buried all this." She smiled gently. "You buried the pain. But scars don't disappear." Before I answered, Emma walked through the front door carrying grocery bags. She froze. "What happened?" Sophia handed her the invitation. Emma read it. Her eyebrows shot upward. "She's unbelievable." "Apparently." Emma looked at me. "Please tell me you're throwing this in the trash." I was going to. "Then do it." I remained silent. Emma crossed her arms. "You don't owe Chloe anything." "I know. She cheated." "I know. She humiliated you." "I remember. So why even think about going?" I couldn't answer immediately. Finally, I admitted. "Because part of me wants to see if facing her changes anything." Emma sighed. "Or maybe it opens old wounds." The front door opened again. Grandpa Walter stepped inside with his usual warm smile. What serious meeting did I interrupt? Emma handed him the invitation. He adjusted his glasses. Then he quietly read the note. His smile disappeared. Emma immediately said, "Tell him not to go." Grandpa looked at me instead. "What does your heart say?" "My heart says burn it." "And your mind?" "My mind keeps asking questions." He nodded slowly. "Then listen carefully." Everyone fell silent. When people hurt us, we often avoid the place where the wound began. I watched him. But sometimes walking back through that door proves it no longer owns you. Emma frowned. "So you're saying he should go?" "I'm saying fear should never make the decision." Sophia smiled thoughtfully. Grandpa continued, "If seeing Chloe still controls your emotions, perhaps one final meeting will finally set you free." I looked down. "What if she's right?" Sophia immediately answered. "About what?" "That she found someone better." She stepped closer until our foreheads almost touched. "No." Her voice stayed calm. "She found someone richer." She gently touched my wedding ring. "I found someone better." Every fear inside me became quiet. Grandpa chuckled softly. "That's the answer I was hoping someone would give." Emma smiled. "I still want to throw the invitation away." Sophia laughed. "So do I." I finally folded the note. "I'll go." Emma blinked. "Seriously?" "Yes." Grandpa nodded proudly. Sophia smiled. "Good." I looked at her. "You don't mind?" She intertwined her fingers with mine. "I'm your wife." She smiled in a way I couldn't quite understand. "We're attending together." I smiled back, unaware that behind her calm expression, she had already begun planning something Chloe would never see coming. I stepped out of the car and stared at the luxury wedding venue. Crystal lights glowed across the entrance. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Soft music drifted through the evening air. For a second, I couldn't move. Sophia slipped her hand into mine. "You don't have to do this." I do. Still nervous? I'd be lying if I said no. She smiled gently. Then let's walk in together. I nodded. As always. We entered the ballroom. The room sparkled with gold decorations and expensive flowers. Guests laughed while servers carried silver trays between crowded tables. Everything looked perfect. Almost immediately, I heard a familiar voice. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. I turned. Chloe stood in front of me wearing a dazzling white dress. She smiled. The smile hadn't changed. Neither had the arrogance behind it. I received your invitation, I said. And my note. I did. She laughed softly. I thought maybe you'd finally accept reality. Sophia remained silent beside me. Chloe looked at her briefly. Oh, you brought someone. I answered calmly. My wife. Her smile twitched for only a second. Really? Yes. She looked Sophia up and down. That's nice. Sophia simply smiled. It's lovely to meet you. The pleasure is mine, Chloe replied, though her voice sounded anything but sincere. She looked back at me. I honestly expected you to arrive alone. I didn't. She folded her arms. I figured you'd still be recovering. Recovering from what? Our breakup. I smiled. That was 5 years ago. Some people never move on. I did. She tilted her head. Did you? Before I answered, her mother approached. Oh my goodness. It's been so long. I nodded politely. Good evening. She sighed dramatically. We always worried about you. Her father joined us. It couldn't have been easy after Chloe left. I remained quiet. He continued. Heartbreak can destroy a man. Chloe added softly. Especially when he loses someone irreplaceable. Her parents exchanged knowing smiles. I recognized those smiles. They weren't sympathy. They were victory. Sophia quietly watched every face. She still said nothing. Chloe's mother looked at Sophia. You must be very understanding. Sophia smiled politely. I try. It can't be easy. What can't? Living with memories. Sophia answered calmly. Everyone has memories. Chloe laughed. Some are harder to forget. I looked directly at her. Not anymore. She held my gaze longer than necessary. Then another voice interrupted. There you are. A tall man approached with a friendly smile. You must be our guest. He extended his hand. I'm Ryan. I shook it. Nice to meet you. I appreciate you coming. Congratulations. Thank you. He smiled warmly. I've heard you and Chloe knew each other years ago. We did. I hope tonight isn't uncomfortable. It'll be fine. Ryan looked genuinely kind. There wasn't a trace of suspicion in his eyes. He had no idea. No idea she had betrayed me. No idea she had once laughed while destroying everything we planned together. He simply smiled. I'll let you enjoy yourselves. Thank you. As Ryan walked away, another man standing nearby kept watching Chloe. He frowned slightly. His eyes moved between us. I didn't recognize him. He stepped closer to Chloe. You okay? She answered too quickly. Of course. You've looked distracted since he arrived. I'm fine. You sure? I'm getting married. I should be happy. Something about his expression told me he didn't believe her. Later, I learned his name. Daniel. He kept glancing toward us throughout the evening. Sophia noticed him too. She quietly whispered, Interesting. What? Nothing. She returned to silently observing everyone. I frowned. You've barely spoken. I'm listening. For what? The truth. Before I could ask more, Chloe walked back over. So, still working that ordinary job? I smiled. Life's been good. She laughed. You always avoided details. I've learned privacy has value. She leaned closer. I remember another conversation. Her words dragged me backward. 5 years disappeared again. I stood inside our tiny apartment. Rain hit the windows. I asked, Who's texting you? She sighed. Someone important. I thought I was important. She looked directly into my eyes. You were. I met someone else. My heartbeat stopped. What are you saying? He has everything. I have you. She shook her head. You have love. I want more. What does that mean? I want money. I stared at her. You cheated? Yes. Why? Because I refused to struggle forever. I would have built everything with you. I don't want someday. I want now. I whispered, Didn't we promise forever? She answered without emotion. Forever doesn't pay bills. The memory vanished. I found myself back inside the ballroom. Chloe smiled confidently, as if she'd won, as if she still believed choosing wealth over love had made her victorious. I looked at Sophia. She smiled at me with quiet warmth. In that moment, I finally understood something. The happiest years of my life hadn't ended when Chloe left. They had started. She thought she had taken everything from me. She never realized losing her was the first day I truly began living. The reception hall buzzed with laughter. Crystal glasses clinked together. Soft music floated through the air. I wished I were anywhere else. Sophia gently squeezed my hand. You okay? I've survived worse. You don't have to pretend with me. I'm trying not to ruin their wedding. She smiled. I noticed. Before I could answer, Chloe walked onto the stage. She accepted the microphone with a confident grin. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, may I have your attention? The conversations faded. Everyone looked toward her. I want to thank all of you for celebrating this beautiful day. Applause filled the room. She lifted a champagne glass. And I'd like to recognize one very special guest. My stomach tightened. She looked directly at me. My old boyfriend. Several guests turned toward our table. I honestly didn't think he'd come. Polite laughter echoed through the ballroom. But he did. She smiled wider. I think that deserves an applause. Scattered clapping began. She continued. It takes courage to finally accept defeat. The laughter grew louder. It isn't easy watching someone choose a better life. I heard whispers around me. So that's him. I remember hearing about that. Poor guy. I lowered my eyes. Old memories clawed at my chest. Then I felt Sophia stand. She leaned close. Stay here. What are you doing? You'll see. She calmly walked toward the stage. I followed her. Chloe frowned. And you are? Sophia smiled politely. My name is Sophia. She reached for the microphone. May I borrow this? Chloe hesitated. Ryan quietly nodded. Go ahead. Sophia accepted the microphone. She looked around the silent ballroom. Then she faced Chloe. The man you're trying to humiliate died years ago. The room froze. Nobody spoke. Even the musicians stopped moving. Chloe blinked. What? Sophia remained calm. The man you betrayed. The man you mocked. The man whose heart you shattered. He's gone. A heavy silence settled over everyone. Sophia continued. You think he's standing here tonight? He isn't. The broken man you left behind died the day you walked away. She looked at me. The man sitting there now is someone completely different. Someone in the audience whispered. She's speaking metaphorically. Another guest nodded. That actually makes sense. But Chloe's face turned red. So this is your speech? She laughed sharply. You're insulting me at my own wedding. Sophia answered quietly. No. I'm correcting your version of history. Ryan stepped forward. Chloe. She ignored him. You came here just to embarrass me? Sophia shook her head. No. You invited us. You handed him that cruel note. You wanted him here. So we're here. Daniel slowly approached the stage. His expression had changed. He looked at Chloe. What note? Chloe stiffened. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. She forced a smile. It's ancient history. Daniel frowned. Why does ancient history look so personal? Ryan looked confused. What exactly happened between you two? Chloe crossed her arms. It was just an old relationship. I stayed silent. Sophia didn't. It wasn't just anything. Ryan looked toward her. What do you mean? Sophia answered without raising her voice. He loved her. He trusted her. He planned a future with her. And she cheated because she found someone wealthier. Gasps spread across the room. Ryan slowly turned toward Chloe. Is that true? She hesitated. It wasn't that simple. Sophia replied. It rarely is. Margaret hurried onto the stage. She forced a nervous laugh. Everyone, let's enjoy dinner. No need to discuss old stories. Sophia looked at her. Old stories become dangerous when they're rewritten. Margaret's smile disappeared. Today is a wedding. Sophia nodded. Exactly. So it should begin with honesty. Chloe snapped. Enough. You don't know me. Sophia answered. I know enough. I know you invited my husband to mock him. I know you expected him to stand here broken. I know you believed your success depended on proving his failure. The ballroom remained perfectly still. Ryan looked at me. Did she really send you that note? I reached into my jacket. I brought it. I handed it to him. He quietly read every word. His face changed. He lowered the paper. You wrote this? Chloe avoided his eyes. I. Ryan's voice grew firmer. Did you? She whispered. Yes. Daniel shook his head slowly. I wondered why you kept staring at him. You've been nervous all evening. Chloe looked around the room. For the first time since I had known her, confidence abandoned her. She searched for another joke. Another clever remark. Another way to control everyone. Nothing came. Sophia handed the microphone back. My husband doesn't need revenge. He already won. She walked back toward me. She took my hand. I stood beside her without saying a word. The silence around us said everything. For the first time in her life, Chloe wasn't controlling the room. She was trapped inside the truth she had spent 5 years trying to hide. I sat beside Sophia without saying a word. The ballroom no longer felt warm. It felt heavy. Every conversation around us had become quieter. Every glance seemed to land on Chloe. Sophia leaned toward me. How are you feeling? I let out a slow breath. Strangely calm. That's new. I expected to be angry. And I'm not. She smiled. Good. Across the room, Ryan quietly folded the note Sophia had handed him. He looked at Chloe. We need to talk. Chloe forced a laugh. Ryan, not now. When? After the wedding. No. His voice stayed polite, but firm. Now. Guests pretended not to watch. None of them succeeded. Daniel stepped closer. I have a question too. Chloe looked annoyed. What is it? You told me your last relationship ended because he couldn't commit. She glanced at me. That's right. Daniel frowned. Then why did your husband just read a note that says you wanted him to accept you chose someone richer? Chloe hesitated. You're misunderstanding. Ryan folded his arms. Am I? She looked from one face to another. It wasn't about money. Daniel replied quietly. Then what was it about? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Margaret hurried over. Everyone, please enjoy the reception. Ryan didn't even look at her. I'd like an answer. Margaret smiled nervously. This really isn't the time. Ryan answered. I think it's exactly the time. Sophia gently touched my arm. Don't interrupt. I wasn't planning to. Just watch. I nodded. For years I had imagined confronting Chloe. I had imagined winning arguments. Proving she had destroyed something valuable. Now I didn't have to. She was doing it herself. Emma suddenly appeared beside our table. I almost forgot. She held a small envelope. I found these in my purse. I frowned. What are those? The old photos you asked me to return years ago. My eyes widened. I forgot those even existed. Emma pulled out the first picture. It showed Chloe and me smiling together during happier days. Then another. Then another. Finally she froze. Oh. Sophia looked over. What? Emma slowly turned the last photograph around. It showed Chloe standing outside my apartment building. She was crying. In her hands was a handwritten letter. I remembered that day instantly. She had begged me to forgive her after admitting she cheated. Emma whispered. I didn't realize this one was here. Ryan noticed. What photograph? Emma hesitated. Chloe rushed forward. Give me that. Emma stepped back. No. Ryan reached out. May I see it? Emma handed it to him. He studied the picture. What's this? Nobody answered. Ryan looked closer. She's crying. He turned the photograph over. A date was written on the back. It was 3 days after Chloe had left me. Ryan slowly lifted his eyes. You went back to him? Chloe swallowed. It wasn't like that. Daniel asked. Did you beg him to forgive you? Silence. Ryan repeated the question. Did you? She looked at me, as if hoping I would save her. I simply remained quiet. Finally she whispered. Yes. The room became even quieter. Ryan blinked. I thought you said you never regretted leaving. You told me he couldn't give you the future you deserved. She shook her head. I was confused. Daniel looked disappointed. So every version of this story has been different. Margaret stepped between them. My daughter made mistakes. Ryan answered calmly. Mistakes aren't my concern. Lies are. Margaret grabbed Chloe's hand. Stop talking. We can explain later. Chloe's breathing became uneven. They're twisting everything. Sophia spoke for the first time in several minutes. No one twisted anything. We simply stopped hiding it. Chloe glared at her. You think you've won? Sophia smiled gently. This isn't a competition. It never was. I looked at Chloe. For years I had wanted this moment. I thought watching her lose control would make me feel victorious. Instead, I felt free. There was no satisfaction. No revenge. Only peace. Sophia leaned against my shoulder. What are you thinking? I smiled. I'm finally done carrying the past. She squeezed my hand. I knew you would be. Across the ballroom, Chloe argued desperately with Ryan while Margaret tried to quiet her. Daniel watched without saying another word. The confident bride who had welcomed me with smug smiles had disappeared. In her place stood someone frightened of her own history. I realized something that surprised even me. I didn't need to expose her. I didn't need to embarrass her. I didn't need to make her suffer. Every lie she had chosen was collapsing under its own weight. The punishment I had dreamed about for 5 long years wasn't coming from me. It was coming from the life she had built on deception. As I looked at Sophia, I understood that my greatest victory wasn't standing in that ballroom. It was walking into it with nothing left to prove. The ballroom had become almost unrecognizable. Only an hour earlier, people had been laughing. Now they whispered behind half-empty glasses. I stood beside Sophia, watching the room slowly unravel. She slipped her hand into mine. "You still okay?" I nodded. "Better than I expected." She smiled. "I told you the truth has a way of finding daylight." Before I could answer, the ballroom doors opened again. Several people stepped inside. Leading them was a woman in a dark suit carrying a leather folder. The conversation stopped. She looked around the room before speaking. "Good evening." Her voice was calm but commanding. "I'm Judge Olivia." Confused murmurs spread through the guests. Ryan frowned. "Judge?" Olivia nodded. "I'm not here in a judicial capacity. I'm here because I was asked to verify information before it disappears." Ryan exchanged a worried glance with Chloe. "What information?" Another man entered behind her. I asked her to come. Everyone turned. Daniel quietly stepped forward. His expression was completely different from earlier. Ryan looked confused. "Daniel." Daniel took a slow breath. "I didn't want this to happen today, but I couldn't ignore what I found." Chloe's face lost its color. "What are you talking about?" Daniel looked directly at Ryan. "Victor contacted me 3 days ago." Ryan blinked. "Victor?" "He discovered suspicious financial transactions involving your company." The room fell silent. Ryan stared. "What?" Daniel continued. "He thought they were accounting errors. They weren't." Olivia opened her folder. Several payments were transferred through businesses connected to Chloe's family. Margaret gasped. "That's ridiculous." Olivia calmly placed several documents on a nearby table. "I wish it were." Ryan stepped closer. "What is this?" Olivia answered. "Financial records, wire transfers, company invoices, and signatures." Ryan picked up the papers. His hands trembled. "I've never seen these." Daniel spoke quietly. "That's because they weren't shown to you." Chloe finally found her voice. "This is a setup." She pointed directly at me. "You did this." Every eye turned toward me. I slowly shook my head. "I didn't." "You hate me." "I don't." "You wanted revenge." I looked her straight in the eyes. "If I wanted revenge, I wouldn't have spent 5 years forgetting you." She opened her mouth. No words came. Sophia calmly stepped forward. "My husband didn't expose anything. He didn't even know these documents existed." Chloe laughed nervously. "You expect everyone to believe that?" Sophia smiled. "Honesty doesn't need manipulation. It simply waits." Ryan looked from Chloe to Daniel. "You knew about this?" Daniel sighed. "I suspected something. When Victor called me, I started checking old records. And I found more." He reached into his briefcase. "There are emails, internal approvals, and messages showing Chloe helped hide several transactions before this wedding." Ryan stared at him. "You're serious?" "I wish I wasn't." Margaret rushed toward Daniel. "You have no right to bring this here." Daniel answered quietly. "I had every right." I refused to stay silent. Olivia nodded. "The evidence deserves proper investigation." Guests began whispering louder. One couple quietly picked up their coats. Another family walked toward the exit. Someone muttered, "This wedding is over." Another whispered, "I can't believe this." Ryan slowly turned toward Chloe. "Tell me they're wrong." She grabbed his arm. "They're twisting everything." "Look at me." "I am." "Tell me you knew nothing." She hesitated. That hesitation lasted only seconds. But it was enough. Ryan gently pulled his arm away. "You knew?" Tears filled Chloe's eyes. "I was trying to protect everyone." Daniel shook his head. "No. You were protecting yourself." Margaret stepped between them. "My daughter made mistakes." Ryan interrupted. "No. Mistakes happen once. This looks planned." Olivia carefully gathered the documents. "I'm not making accusations tonight. I'm preserving evidence. What happens next will depend on a formal investigation." Nobody argued. Nobody celebrated. The ballroom had become painfully quiet. I looked around at the emptying room. Flowers still decorated every table. Music still played softly through hidden speakers. Yet the celebration had disappeared. Sophia leaned against my shoulder. "What are you thinking?" I watched another group of guests leave. "I'm thinking that revenge would have never looked like this." She nodded. "Because revenge ends when someone suffers. And this This is the truth arriving. I looked across the ballroom one last time. Chloe stood frozen beside Ryan. Margaret desperately whispered into her ear. Daniel remained silent. Olivia closed her folder. No one looked victorious. No one looked happy. The wedding that had been planned as a celebration had become something entirely different. And for the first time since receiving that invitation, I realized I wasn't standing in the middle of Chloe's story anymore. I was simply watching the consequences of choices she had made long before I walked through those doors. I stood near the ballroom entrance, watching guests leave in quiet disbelief. The decorations were still beautiful. The music was still playing, but the celebration had vanished. Sophia slipped her arm through mine. You don't have to stay. I know. Do you want to leave? I looked across the room. No. I think this is the end. Ryan slowly walked toward Chloe. His face was pale. We need to talk. She forced a smile. Of course. Alone. Without another word, they disappeared into a small lounge beside the ballroom. I hadn't planned to follow them. But as Sophia and I walked toward the exit, their voices drifted through the half-open door. Ryan sounded exhausted. Please tell me the truth. I already have. No. You've given me 3 different stories. I was scared. Were you scared? Or were you lying? Silence answered him. He spoke again. Did you hide those financial records? You don't understand. Then help me understand. I did it for us. There wasn't an US when those papers were signed. I closed my eyes. Sophia gently touched my shoulder. We shouldn't listen. I know. Before we could walk away, the lounge door opened. Daniel stepped inside holding his phone. I'm sorry. Ryan looked at him. What now? I found one last thing. Chloe immediately shook her head. No. Don't. Daniel looked heartbroken. I hoped I would never have to play this. Ryan frowned. What is it? A recording. Chloe rushed toward him. You can't. Daniel quietly stepped back. I have to. He pressed the screen. A familiar voice filled the room. It was Chloe. She laughed. They're all so easy to control. Ryan's expression froze. The recording continued. If I tell each person a different story, nobody can compare notes. Another laugh. If something goes wrong, I'll just blame someone else. Ryan whispered. No. The recording played on. He still thinks love matters. I chose money because money wins. Then silence. Daniel lowered the phone. I didn't edit anything. I verified it. Ryan looked at Chloe. She reached for his hand. I didn't mean it. When you said it. Or now. Tears streamed down her face. I was confused. Ryan slowly stepped away. No. You were calculating. I love you. He closed his eyes. I don't know who you are. Margaret hurried into the lounge. Ryan. Please. We can fix this. Ryan looked at her. Did you know? She hesitated. That was all the answer he needed. You knew. I was protecting my daughter. You were protecting a lie. Margaret lowered her head. For years, Ryan continued, I believed I was marrying an honest woman. He looked at Chloe. I don't even know if I ever met the real you. She sobbed. Please don't do this. Ryan took a long breath. Then he quietly removed the wedding ring from his pocket. I can't marry someone I can't trust. The words echoed through the lounge. Chloe stared at him. What? The wedding is over. Her knees nearly gave out. No. You can't. I already have. Outside the lounge, whispers spread through the ballroom. The wedding's canceled. Did you hear? It's over. More guests collected their coats. Some looked shocked. Others simply shook their heads. Margaret stood frozen. For years she had spoken about status, reputation, and marrying into success. Now every proud dream she had chased was collapsing in front of everyone. She covered her face. No speech could save her. No excuse could erase what had happened. Chloe walked out of the lounge a few moments later. The confident bride from earlier was gone. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. No one approached her. No one applauded. No one defended her. She looked around the nearly empty ballroom, as though hoping someone would tell her it was all a mistake. Nobody did. I watched quietly. Sophia slipped her fingers between mine. What do you feel? I thought about the answer. I expected satisfaction. And I don't have any. She looked at me. Why? I watched Chloe standing alone beneath the bright lights. Because this isn't victory. It's a life falling apart. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Sophia smiled gently. That means you've truly moved on. I nodded. 5 years ago, I believed Chloe had destroyed my future. Standing there, I finally understood something different. She hadn't destroyed my future. She had slowly destroyed her own. Grandpa Walter's voice echoed in my mind, as clearly as if he were standing beside me. Asterisk, karma never rushes, son. Asterisk. I smiled sadly. Asterisk, but it never forgets. Asterisk. As Sophia and I walked out of the ballroom together, I didn't look back again. For the first time in years, the past no longer followed me. The night air felt colder than it had a few hours earlier. Sophia and I walked toward our car without speaking. The wedding venue faded behind us. So did the noise. I unlocked the passenger door. She stopped me. Can we sit for a minute? I nodded. We settled onto a quiet bench beneath a row of trees. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, I broke the silence. Thank you. She smiled softly. You don't have to thank me. I do. You stood beside me when nobody else could have blamed you for walking away. She reached for my hand. I made a promise. I remember. And I meant it. I looked down. There was something I wanted to ask. I know. You do? She laughed quietly. You've been wondering ever since the reception. I nodded. Why did you tell everyone the man Chloe hurt was dead? She looked toward the stars before answering. Because he is. I frowned. I don't understand. She turned back to me. Do you remember the first day we met? I remember every detail. I don't think you do. What did I forget? You smiled. I did. But your eyes didn't. I stayed silent. She continued. You laughed at my jokes. You were polite. You were kind. But every time someone mentioned love, your expression changed. I swallowed. I thought I hid that. You tried. You never succeeded. I let out a slow breath. I was still broken. I know. You knew? I knew the first week. She squeezed my hand. I wasn't falling in love with a confident man. I was falling in love with someone who had forgotten how valuable he was. Her words settled deep inside me. I never told you that. You didn't have to. She smiled. I could see it. I looked away. I hated who I had become. I know. I questioned everything. I know. I even questioned whether anyone could ever love me again. She gently touched my cheek. That's why I said he died. I looked back at her. The man Chloe betrayed stopped existing the day you chose to trust someone again. I felt my throat tighten. You gave me that chance. No. She shook her head. You gave it to yourself. I only held the door open. A tear escaped before I realized it. She wiped it away without saying a word. I never noticed how much you protected me. You weren't supposed to. What do you mean? When people asked about your past, I changed the subject. When old memories hurt you, I stayed close without forcing you to talk. When you doubted yourself, I reminded you who you really were. I stared at her. You did all that. She laughed. I did a lot more. Before I could ask, headlights appeared. Victor parked nearby and stepped out. I hope I'm not interrupting. Sophia smiled. Not at all. Victor sat on the opposite bench. I wanted to tell you something. I looked at him. What is it? He chuckled. Do you know how many people tried to date Sophia before you? I blinked. No. Quite a few. Sophia sighed. Victor. What? It's true. I looked between them. I never knew. Victor folded his arms. One businessman owned 3 companies. Another came from one of the wealthiest families in the city. I raised my eyebrows. Seriously? Sophia smiled awkwardly. I never mentioned it because it didn't matter. Victor laughed. They all had money. They all had influence. They all assumed she'd say yes. I looked at Sophia. Why didn't you? She answered without hesitation. Because none of them were you. Victor nodded. I asked her once. What did you ask? Why choose a man still carrying old scars? I held my breath. Sophia smiled at the memory. I told him kindness lasts longer than status. Victor grinned. That's exactly what she said. I couldn't speak. Sophia looked into my eyes. I never wanted the richest man. I wanted the right man. I felt every wall inside me finally collapse. 5 years of anger. 5 years of questions. 5 years of wondering why I hadn't been enough. None of it mattered anymore. I took a long breath. I think I finally understand. What? I've been carrying resentment toward Chloe for years. Sophia listened quietly. But tonight, I smiled. I don't hate her anymore. Victor nodded. What changed? I realized she's no longer part of my future. Sophia leaned her head against my shoulder. And your future? I wrapped my arm around her. It's sitting beside me. For the first time since my heart had been broken, I let go of the last piece of bitterness I had been carrying. It didn't disappear because Chloe suffered. It disappeared because I finally understood that real love had already healed everything she had once destroyed. 3 weeks passed after the wedding that never happened. Life slowly returned to normal. I went back to work. Sophia and I spent quiet evenings together. For the first time in years, my past no longer followed me everywhere. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was Emma. Have you heard? Heard what? Ryan sold his engagement ring. I stayed silent. He hasn't spoken to Chloe since the wedding. What about Margaret? Emma sighed. Most of her friends disappeared the moment the scandal became public. And Daniel? He walked away too. I looked out my office window. I hope they all find peace someday. Emma sounded surprised. You're not happy? No. I don't enjoy watching lives fall apart. After ending the call, I gathered my things and headed home. The afternoon sky was turning orange. As I reached the gate, I noticed someone standing beside it. For a moment, I didn't recognize her. Then she slowly lifted her head. It was Chloe. She looked exhausted. Gone was the confidence she had carried at the wedding. Her eyes were swollen. Her shoulders slumped. She held a small purse in trembling hands. I wasn't sure you'd stop. I almost didn't. She nodded sadly. I understand. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. I glanced across the street. Sophia had just stepped out of a nearby bookstore. She smiled when she saw me and quietly waited, giving us space. I looked back at Chloe. You have a few minutes. She took a deep breath. Ryan won't answer my calls. I said nothing. My mother barely leaves the house anymore. I remained silent. Daniel told me I needed to face what I'd done. She looked at the ground. I think he was right. The wind carried a few dry leaves across the sidewalk. Finally, she looked into my eyes. Can I ask you something? You can ask. I don't know if you'll answer. I'll answer honestly. A tear rolled down her cheek. Did you ever really love me? The question lingered between us. I didn't need time to think. Yes. She closed her eyes. I loved you more than I knew how to explain. I believed we'd spend our lives together. I trusted you with every dream I had. She began crying harder. I know. I continued softly. I loved you enough to forgive almost anything. Her voice cracked. Almost. I nodded. Not betrayal. She covered her face. I'm sorry. I know. No. You don't. I've replayed that night in my mind every single day. I've wished I could take it back. I looked at her quietly. If you could, would you choose differently? Without hesitation, she whispered. Yes. I would stay. I would choose love. I smiled sadly. I believe you. She looked surprised. You do? Yes. Then. She struggled to finish the sentence. Could we ever? Her words faded. Could we ever start over? I looked across the street again. Sophia was still waiting patiently. She wasn't watching us with fear. She wasn't angry. She simply trusted me. That trust answered the question before I spoke. I turned back to Chloe. No. Fresh tears filled her eyes. Not because I hate you. I don't. Not because I want revenge. I don't. Then why? I took a slow breath. Because some doors close forever. She whispered. I know. I gently shook my head. They don't close to punish us. They close to protect the future. She stared at me. If I opened that door again, I'd lose the life I spent years rebuilding. I smiled toward Sophia. I found a love built on honesty. I won't risk that. Chloe followed my gaze. She saw Sophia standing quietly across the street. A faint, heartbreaking smile appeared on her face. She really loves you. She does. And you love her. I answered without hesitation. With all my heart. She nodded slowly. I can see it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she wiped away her tears. I spent years believing success meant choosing the richest future. She laughed bitterly. I never realized I walked away from the person who would have stood beside me through everything. I felt sympathy, but not longing. The man who had once dreamed of hearing those words no longer existed. I hope you find peace, Chloe. She looked at me one last time. I don't deserve it. Everyone deserves the chance to become better. She gave a small nod. Thank you for answering honestly. She turned and walked away. She never looked back. I watched until she disappeared around the corner. Then I crossed the street. Sophia met me with a gentle smile. Everything okay? I took her hand. Everything finally feels finished. She intertwined her fingers with mine. Ready to go home? I smiled. I've been ready for a long time. Together, we walked toward the future, leaving the past exactly where it belonged. 6 months passed more quietly than I ever imagined. For the first time in years, peace felt normal. Not exciting. Not fragile. Simply real. I stood beside Sophia on an empty piece of land overlooking a small lake. She unfolded a set of blueprints across the hood of my truck. "So," she asked, smiling, "where do you want the kitchen?" I laughed. "You've asked me that 5 times. And you've changed your answer 5 times. I'm an architect. You're impossible. I'm thorough." She pointed to the drawing. "I still think the windows should face the water." I studied the sketch. "You know what? I think you're right." She folded her arms proudly. "I usually am." "Oh, you married me." I laughed louder than I had in a long time. "There it is." "What?" "The smile." "What smile?" "The one that reaches your eyes." I looked at her. "I didn't even know you noticed." "I notice everything." She slipped her hand into mine. "This house isn't just a project." "I know. It's proof." "Proof of what?" "That we stopped surviving and started living." I nodded. She was right. We weren't rebuilding the past. We were creating something that had never existed before. A future that belonged only to us. A few days later, Emma invited us to dinner. She walked into the restaurant wearing the biggest smile I had ever seen. I got it. I stood and hugged her. "You got the promotion?" "I did." Sophia clapped happily. "I knew you would." Emma laughed. "I didn't." She sat down across from us. "My new office even has windows." I grinned. "Now that's real success." She rolled her eyes. "It comes with twice the responsibility. And twice the paycheck." "That too." We spent the evening laughing about old memories instead of painful ones. As we walked outside, Emma smiled at me. "You know what's strange?" "What?" "This is the first time I've seen you without that shadow hanging over you." I looked at Sophia. I think she chased it away. Sophia smiled. I just reminded him where the light was. A week later, I met Daniel for coffee. He looked different. Lighter. He stirred his drink before speaking. I left the business world. I raised an eyebrow. "Really? I needed a fresh start." "No regrets." He smiled. "Some. But staying would have given me more." I nodded. "What comes next?" "I accepted a position with a nonprofit that designs affordable housing." I smiled. "That sounds like you." I finally realized success isn't measured by who you impress. It's measured by who you help. We shook hands before leaving. As he walked away, I realized we were both beginning again. Not because life had forced us to, because we had chosen to. Later that month, Victor visited my office carrying a folder. He placed it on my desk. "Open it." Inside were business plans, financial projections, and a company registration form. I looked up. "What's this?" "Your future." I laughed. "My future?" "You've spent years making other people's dreams real. It's time to build your own." "You really think I can?" He leaned forward. "I don't think. I know. The city needs architects who care about people more than profits." I looked at the papers again. Starting my own company had always been a dream I was too afraid to chase. Now it no longer felt impossible. It felt inevitable. One quiet evening, Sophia and I visited Grandpa Walter. He sat on the porch, watching the sunset. He smiled as we walked toward him. "There you are." "We brought dinner," Sophia said. "And dessert," I added. "Now I know you love me." We laughed together. After dinner, Grandpa studied me for a long moment. "What?" He smiled warmly. "I've been watching you." "Should I be worried?" "No. You should be grateful." "For what?" "I've never seen you smile the way you do now." I looked down. I didn't realize it was that different. "It is." The old smile was polite. "This one is peaceful." His words stayed with me. As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, I thought about everything that had happened. For years, I believed happiness meant proving someone wrong. I believed revenge would heal my heart. I couldn't have been more mistaken. Happiness wasn't watching Chloe lose everything. Happiness was designing a home with the woman who believed in me. It was celebrating Emma's success. It was seeing Daniel find purpose. It was believing Victor when he believed in me. It was hearing Grandpa tell me I had finally found peace. Most of all, it was waking up each morning without carrying yesterday's pain. I searched my memories for Chloe. Her face appeared only briefly. Not as an open wound. Not as the center of my story. Only as someone who had once been part of a chapter that had already ended. I smiled as Sophia rested her head on my shoulder. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking back. I was finally looking home. A full year had passed since the wedding that never happened. I woke that morning expecting an ordinary Saturday. Instead, Sophia smiled across the breakfast table. "Don't make plans." I raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" She laughed. "Not even a little." "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise." An hour later, we drove across town in comfortable silence. She turned onto a familiar road. My heart skipped. I know this place. I know you do. We parked beside an old neighborhood park. The trees had grown taller. The walking paths looked newer. But I recognized it immediately. 5 years earlier, Chloe had asked me to meet her there. That was the afternoon she admitted everything. The afternoon she confessed she had chosen someone else's wealth over my love. I looked at Sophia. You brought me here. She nodded. Yes. Why? Because I think it's time. We walked slowly toward the center of the park. Every step awakened memories I thought had disappeared forever. I remembered standing beneath an old oak tree. I remembered asking through tears, was any of it real? I remembered Chloe looking away before whispering, I'm sorry. Back then, I believed my life had ended. Now I stood in the same place with peace in my heart. Sophia reached into her bag. I've been carrying something. She handed me a cream-colored envelope. I stared at it. The elegant handwriting was unmistakable. The wedding invitation. She smiled softly. You never opened it again after that day. I couldn't. I know. I turned it over in my hands. For a moment, I considered opening it one last time. Then I realized I didn't need to. Whatever words waited inside had already lost their power. Sophia pointed toward a young tree growing near the path. I planted that a few months ago. You did? I asked the city for permission. I laughed quietly. You've been planning this. For a while. She handed me a small garden shovel. What do you want me to do? Help me bury the last piece of your past. Together, we knelt beside the young tree. I dug a small hole. The earth was soft from the previous night's rain. I looked at the unopened invitation one final time. Sophia squeezed my hand. Are you ready? I smiled. I've been ready longer than I realized. I placed the envelope into the ground. Neither of us spoke. We gently covered it with soil. When we finished, Sophia brushed the dirt from her hands. There. I stood beside her. It feels strange. In a good way? In the best way. She slipped her hand into mine. What are you thinking? I looked at the little tree. I'm thinking that for years I carried this without realizing it. And now it belongs to the past. A breeze moved through the branches overhead. I closed my eyes. I thought about everything I had survived. The betrayal, the sleepless nights, the anger, the shame, the questions that had haunted me for years. I had come so close to believing one person's choices would define the rest of my life. If I had stayed trapped in that pain, I never would have met Sophia with an open heart. I never would have laughed with Emma. I never would have listened to Grandpa Walter's quiet wisdom. I never would have believed Victor when he saw potential in me. I never would have built a future instead of mourning a past. Sophia leaned against my shoulder. Any regrets? I smiled. Only one. What is it? I wish I'd realized sooner that healing wasn't about forgetting. What was it about? Choosing not to let yesterday decide tomorrow. She looked up at me with the same gentle smile that had first made me believe in love again. I'm proud of you. I kissed her forehead. You saved me. She shook her head. No, I loved you. You chose to save yourself. Those words settled quietly inside my heart. Grandpa Walter had once told me that karma never rushed, but it never forgot. He had been right. But he had also taught me something even greater. Life always gives us a choice. We can spend our years staring at closed doors, or we can walk toward the ones waiting to be opened. I looked once more at the young tree. Beneath its roots rested an unopened invitation. It no longer represented humiliation. It no longer represented heartbreak. It had become nothing more than a reminder of a life I had already outgrown. I finally understood the truth. The man Chloe believed she had destroyed really was gone. Not because she defeated him. Not because time erased him. He disappeared because I chose to become someone stronger, kinder, and wiser than the man who had once begged to be loved. Sophia intertwined her fingers with mine. Ready to go home? I looked ahead instead of behind. I smiled without hesitation. More than ever. Together, we walked away from the park. I never looked back. I didn't need to. My victory had never been watching the past collapse. My victory was choosing the beautiful life waiting ahead.